So, good evening, everyone. My name is Tosin Fajobi. I am the immigration attorney here at the Nigerian Center, and tonight we will be having a Know Your Rights. Our topics will be understanding DACA, VAWA, SIJS, and Asylum. Can everyone see my screen? Yes. Okay, so I'm getting a lot of,
Yes, thank
yeah, so we'll be pressing forward. So as I stated, my name is Tosin, and I'll just tell you guys a little bit about the Nigerian Center, and then we will go to our speakers. We have Nils here, who will be talking about policy updates. He works with African communities together, and April Holloway, who also works with Nigerian Center, and she will be giving an overview of SIJS, DACA, VAWA, and Asylum. And lastly, we will have a question Q&A at the end, so please hold all of your questions to the end. You can raise your hand or you can put them in the chat.
My name is Benga Agunjimi, and I'm the founder and executive director of the Nigerian Center. The Nigerian Center is the very first Nigerian American immigrant and community center. While we are called the Nigerian Center, we serve all minority and all immigrant groups in the United States. In many immigrant communities across the country and around the world, whether they're Chinese or Jewish or Latinos or even Ethiopians, there is an actual location members of those communities can walk into to support the American dream and American experience. While the Nigerian community individually has prospered, we now have an opportunity as a community to have our own Nigerian Center.
I am most excited to be a part of the Nigerian Center because we are a resource hub. And we know that while a lot of Nigerians we may know come into the country and they have a connection here or there is a huge population that don't have access. I can speak to thinking about maybe 30, 40 years ago when my parents came to the country. And while my dad came to the country through education, my mom came through a lottery. And when she got here, she had to do things the regular way. You know, she came in New York, hustled, worked at McDonald's for like 2 weeks, and from McDonald's, she started getting, other menial jobs before she was able to meet my dad. They got married, they had children. My mom didn't go back to school. Until she was like 40 to finally start her career. And I know that if there was something like the Nigerian Center, she could have been afforded opportunities, access information on how to go to school or how to start her own business if that's what she wanted to venture into.
I remember my uncle, I think I was like 10. He got deported. I haven't seen him in years because he can't come back in this country. If he had had the resources that the Nigerian Center offered, maybe it would be a different story.
As a pastor, and I can speak confidently for the church community, a lot of pastors struggle with the kinds of immigration challenges that their members are having. And sometimes when we pastors meet, we joke about the fact that there's this thing that is, the don't ask, don't tell kind of thing. A principle that most Nigerians are engaging in. They don't tell you what they are going through. Some of them are dying in silence. By the time they speak up, sometimes it's too late. And I know that as a pastor, I could have, Nigerian Center will have come handy in helping people to know what is right, having the right information, speak to the right attorney, have right representation in court, and just to make the journey easier and smoother in the United States.
People come here from different paths, and for the same main reason is to get a better life, better situation for their family. So there are numerous ways, there are numerous paths to the United States and to citizenship. So we help people with family-based immigration, employment-based immigration, asylum, refugee cases, student visas, pretty much everything that the law allows us to assist people with immigrate with the process of immigration.
Just having this center here, it's just people identified that looks just like us. We can get the resource from. I mean, this is something that even me as a grown-up young person just wanted to come. I wanted to know that it belongs here. So I'm just happy that this is here. I wish that my mom and dad, they were still alive to like witness this experience.
From the time my parents came from Kenya, they immigrated to New Jersey, and that's where they actually met. It took years for my mom to find employment. My dad has stayed at the same job for 25 plus years in fear of not being able to find other employment. Not even that, being able to purchase a home, it took them 25 years to buy their dream home. Having the healthcare aspect and having health insurance for my siblings and I. Nigerian Center is providing a service from all crosses across the board for immigrants.
The Nigerian Center provides opportunities with immigration and naturalization, provide home ownership opportunities, access to capital, language classes, and cultural programs.
Learning about the Nigerian Center was a godsend. Growing up, I used to think about how we can share our experiences and our culture. And oftentimes, Nigerian people are so interested in giving back, but there are few opportunities and motives to do so. So when I heard about the Nigerian Center, it just clicked. We're talking about home ownership. We're talking about financial literacy. We're talking about immigration services, not only for people from our background, diaspora, but for everybody else as well who gain from it. I see the Nigerian Center not only as an opportunity to celebrate the culture, but to also share it as well.
I welcome you to be a part of the journey and to be a part of the experience. Welcome to the Nigerian Center.
Okay, so that was just a brief introduction, just to let you know about the Nigerian Center, why it was created, and some of the things that we do here. So next, I'm just going to talk about some of our upcoming events and some of the services that we offer. So every Thursday, we have a free walk-in immigration clinic that you can come in person, or you can also schedule an appointment and have a virtual meeting. It's from 12:30 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. We also have VITA taxes here, where if you make under $69,000, you are eligible to have some assistance with filing your taxes. Also, we host language classes for Igbo, Yoruba, and Hausa. So if you would like to speak one of these languages, you can reach out to us and we will get you in touch with the right person to have these lessons. If you would like to volunteer with us, you can also go to this link and come in and volunteer. We have many different options for volunteering. These are some of our community partners. If you would like to know more about that, you can click on that link as well. And please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube. Make sure you have your notification bell on. And if you feel so inclined, you are always welcome to donate to us at the Nigerian Center. And now we will get started with the Know Your Rights workshop. So we will be having two speakers tonight. Our first speaker will be Nils, and then our second speaker will be April. So I'm going to hand it over to Nils now.
All right, thank you, Tosin. Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you everyone for joining us this evening. My name is Nils Kinuani. I am the Federal Policy Manager for African Communities Together, and African Communities Together is an organization of African immigrants. We work to empower African immigrants to integrate socially, engage civically, and advance economically. So my presentation will be relatively short. I will be providing updates on um, some of the policies that are affecting African immigrants, a lot of us here. As you know, knowledge is power. So information is key. So we hope that this information can help you or your loved one, your family members and friends understand and navigate the current immigration landscape. All right, so I will start with what's happening in Congress. As you know, Congress plays a big role in, shaping the immigration policy. They do make the laws. Um, so one big issue in Congress with regard to immigration the last few months was around the funding or the appropriation bill. The appropriation bill and the funding bill or the funding bill is essentially the way that the Congress is able to fund the government. And over the last few months, Congress could now reach an agreement on how they should fund the Department of Homeland Security. As you know, Department of Homeland Security or DHS is in charge of executing or administering immigration laws, essentially. And so on the one hand, Democrats pushed back against, funding agencies like ICE and CBP, and pushing for reforms when it comes to immigration enforcement. And on the other end, Republicans push to continue funding ICE and CBP. Now, they reached an agreement, and so there was a bill that was passed, a law that was passed that funded all of the agencies at DHS except ICE and CBP. So, and that happened in April last month. So they were able to pass a funding bill that provided funding for other agencies within DHS like FEMA, TSA, and that bill did not include any additional funding for ICE and CBP. Now, fast forward to this month. Now, the Senate has initiated another budget process called the reconciliation bill, or the reconciliation process, I should say. And with the reconciliation process, they are able to, it's a legislative tool that allows the party in power to fund the government to pass a budget bill without involving the other party. As you know, we're in a party, the two-party system, Democrat and Republicans. So through the reconciliation bill, if there's one party in power controlling Congress and the executive branch, then they're able to pass a reconciliation bill without the involvement or input or without getting the other party on board. And the reason is because with the reconciliation bill, you only need a simple majority in the Senate. So normally, most bills, most bills, including funding or appropriation bills, require a 60 vote in the Senate. However, with the reconciliation bill, they only need a 50 vote for 51 simple majority vote in the Senate. So it's a process that was used actually last year for those of you who have been following immigration policies. And so mostly Republicans are trying to use it now. And that process is underway. They have started negotiations. And, from what we have heard, really the purpose here, the goal is to get funding for ICE and CBP. Since ICE and CBP did not get any funding from the the regular appropriation bill earlier this year, Republicans are hoping to use the reconciliation bill to get more funding for ICE and CBP. So that process is underway. They've started negotiation. We're actually expecting a vote in the Senate this week, but however, that has been postponed. It's something that we are tracking. It's also something that I do encourage you to follow. We'll be providing updates eventually, but um, it's something that could impact DHS operations in terms of especially with immigration enforcement. So that's the update from what's happening in Congress. Now I'll move to the update from the judiciary or the Supreme Court. As you might also know, this administration has terminated a bunch of TPS designations. And for the African continent, they've terminated TPS for the administration terminated TPS for Cameroon, South Sudan, Ethiopia, Somalia. My organization, African Communities Together, is actually challenging those terminations. Some of those terminations in court. So we have filed a lawsuit challenging the termination of TPS for South Sudan, Ethiopia, and Somalia. And so, and there are also other groups, other communities that are also challenging other TPS terminations for other TPS designations. And some of those lawsuits, those cases are making their way all the way to the Supreme Court. So that was the case for the TPS for Haiti and TPS for Syria. So the lawsuit involving those two TPS designations made it to the Supreme Court. And it was in April, a few weeks ago, I think it was April 29th, the Supreme Court heard oral argument for those two cases, the TPS for Haiti and TPS for Syria. And the one question, or the legal question that was presented to the court, is whether the court has the power to review the administration decisions on TPS designations. And that is the main question that the court is considering, that the court will have to answer. And we're expecting a decision in June. So essentially, if the court answers yes to that question, that they do not have power to review any decisions from the administration on TPS, then it means that the administration could terminate continue to terminate TPS designations without any opportunity option for judicial review. That those decisions will not be reviewed by the court. So again, we're expecting a decision or an answer from the court in June, and we'll be sure to keep you posted. And I have lastly, updates on some administrative items. The USCIS made an announcement last week that reminding people to pay their annual asylum fee. So especially if you receive a notification, you must pay within 30 days, otherwise your application will be rejected, denied, and also you might lose access to work authorization. So that is very important for people with pending asylum cases. Please look out for the notification. So usually USCIS will send folks a notice, a letter asking them to pay. So when you receive that notice, it's important that you pay, you make the payment as soon as possible. And also another issue that we are tracking here is the adjudication pause. And that is a policy that this administration implemented earlier this year. So effectively pausing adjudication or final decision on uh, immigration applications, including green card application and other applications for people, immigrants whose home country is part of the subject to travel ban. So if your home country is subject to travel ban, then your application will not be, your immigration application will not be processed. And I should say here, what I should clarify here is that USCIS will still accept your asylum application. I mean your application. I see April posted something about asylum, so that's why I said asylum. Thank you, April. But yeah, so what I was saying is that immigration will process your application. Sometimes the even scheduling appointments, interviews, but will not, under this adjudication pause, they will not issue final decisions. Again, our organization, African Communities Together, has also filed another lawsuit challenging this policy. As you can imagine, this policy is affecting a lot of our community members, especially people who have followed the law, waited in line for years. So we'll also keep you posted on the outcome of this lawsuit. And well, also lastly, the Ebola outbreak. So there are 3 countries that have been affected. Well, I should say that the Ebola outbreak also has been one of the reasons for the recent entry ban. So, foreign travelers coming from Congo, DRC, Uganda, and South Sudan are will not be able to enter the US under this new Title 42 entry ban. So that's all I had, and happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you so much for the helpful information. If anyone has any questions, if you would like to put them in the chat or raise your hand. If not, we will go on to our next speaker, April Holloway.
Hi, my name is April Holloway. I'm an immigration attorney, and I volunteer on Thursdays with the Nigerian Center. So if you ever come in for one of our consultations on Thursdays, I'll see you there. Otherwise, I'm in my little box here over in Southeast. So we're going to talk briefly today about a few different immigration pathways. Some are pathways that will take you all the way to residency green card, and some are just placeholders until you can have something better. So before I get started, we're going to start with special immigrant juvenile status. I do want to note that because a lot of people move after they apply for asylum, and even your best efforts to keep your address updated may fail with USCIS, you can use the link that I dropped in the chat to check and see whether or not your payment is due for the annual asylum fee. You'll have to put in your alien number and then put in your receipt number, and it'll let you know if your payment is due. Also, just want to note that you're only going to get one reminder, and after that, you have to pay the annual fee on your own. So make sure you set some kind of calendar notice or other notice for yourself as to whether or not you have to pay. Litigation is ongoing back and forth about, this issue. And so it may come a time where you don't have to pay it anymore. And then there may be pauses here and there. So just try to keep on top of that. Okay, so we are going to start with special immigrant juvenile status. This is a three-step process that allows children who have been abandoned, abused, or neglected by one or both of their parents to obtain residency. Now, an issue that I encounter a lot in dealing with families from certain cultures is that they do not want to admit that they have abandoned their children. Abandonment does not mean that you don't love your children or you don't care for them. Abandonment simply means that they are here in the United States on their own. So even if you sent them to the United States to have a better life and to have opportunities, if you're not here with them, that can be categorized as abandonment. It's not an offense to you. It is a pathway for your child to obtain residency, okay? The limitation of special immigrant juvenile status is that once your child becomes a resident, becomes a citizen, they are not able to petition for their parents. So this pathway does not allow you to petition for parents once you obtain status. But it does give you an opportunity to obtain a green card, to go on to college, and to have the bright future that you sent your kids here to have. So the first step of this process is going to family court. The child has to be deemed dependent on a guardian to take care of them. The guardian can be one of the parents or a different family member or a friend of the court. After that, you get a designation or you get an order that this child cannot be returned to the home country and that it's in the court's best interest to put them in the custody of the friend, family member, or one of the parents. You take that and you're going to file an I-360 with USCIS. The I-360 form is used for multiple different processes. It's used for if you're a victim of a spousal abuse. It's used for this process, SIJS. So don't get, it's used if you're a widow of a US citizen. So there's a lot of parts on the form that may not apply to you depending on what you're applying for. Just don't get confused by that. After the I-360 is approved, there's usually a bit of a waiting period. It just depends on visa availability, and then you can apply for residency. This application does not matter how you arrived in the United States. So if you arrived with a visa, without a visa, it doesn't matter. You're still eligible for special immigrant juvenile status. It's very important that this gets done before you turn 18. There are some states that allow you to go up to 21, but most jurisdictions need it to be done before you turn 18, okay? VAWA is an acronym for Violence Against Women's Act. And even though it was created with women in mind, it is available for men and women. And yes, men do suffer abuse in relationships. In order to apply for VAWA, the abuser can be your US citizen or LPR parent. It could be your spouse, or it could even be your child. You do have to have some evidence of the abuse, and that could be statements from other people who witnessed it. It could be photos. It could be as severe as police reports, your own statement, but you do have to provide some evidence of the abuse, and it doesn't have to be physical. The abuse can be an emotional, psychological. There's also cultural and religious abuse. One of the cases that I've seen be approved is where the spouses agreed on marriage, that one would practice their Christian faith and the other would practice their Muslim faith. But throughout the marriage, one spouse became very coercive of the other one, demanding that they change their style of dress, their place where they go and worship, and reducing them or forcing them basically to becoming the religion of the other person. And if they did not comply with that, then I'm going to no longer sponsor you. I'm going to no longer petition for you. That is also abuse. That person never laid a hand on their spouse, but that is also abuse. You do have to prove that the marriage is what they call bona fide marriage, that it's a real marriage. So you're going to show the abuse, but you also have to show that your lives were entangled and that you were living together and that your marriage was for the purpose of love. It was for the purpose of having a long life together. So they want to see some financial entanglement. They want to see activities that you did together. They want friends and family to be able to attest to doing things with you or seeing how you interacted with each other. And they may also do a spot visit to make sure that, your story is consistent with your current living situation. Okay. Asylum. Now, I did a very long presentation on asylum for the Nigerian Center, which you can find on their YouTube page. In that presentation, we went through the evidence needed for every single section required to win asylum. I'm just going to do an overview tonight, but if you want that deep dive, also did a deep dive in that one of the exceptions to the 1-year filing deadline. You can find that on the Nigerian Center's YouTube page. So first of all, what's the difference between refugee status and asylum? Refugee status is designated when you are outside of the country. So you can be designated as a refugee by the UNHCR, and then they decide where you're going to go. So if they place you in the United States as a refugee, you get certain benefits that asylum seekers don't get. There are no fees when you apply for residency. There's greater assistance with housing and food and acclimation. Applying for asylum can only be done within the United States. So you have to come to the border or you have to already be in the US to apply for asylum. So that's the difference between those two. The 5 requirements to win your asylum case: you have to show past persecution, that you've been harmed in the past; future persecution, that the reason you were harmed in the past continues to present day; nexus, meaning that the reason you were harmed relates to a specific issue. It's not general crime in the country. You have to show that internal relocation is not possible, that it's unsafe everywhere that you might live in that country. And the last thing you have to show is government action or inaction, meaning that the government is the one that is persecuting you, or the government refuses to stop the person who is persecuting you. So an example of that would be the current situation in Nicaragua. The current government is persecuting people who don't support Sandistas, and they refuse to take action against the Sandista supporters who hurt other people in their country. Okay. There is a 1-year filing deadline for asylum. However, there are exceptions, which are a changed condition and extraordinary circumstances. And again, if you want like a deep dive on exactly what that means, you can find the YouTube video on the Nigerian Center page to go through that. You can also come in and have a consultation with us. So some of the evidence that you can use to establish past persecution are going to be photos of any injuries you had, medical records. A lot of times people think that if they didn't bring medical records with them, that that's not useful, but you can have a new medical exam here in the United States that can establish past harm as well. So if you have a loss of hearing because somebody hit you in the head really hard, you can have a current medical exam that shows that, and the doctor can give an opinion on what could have caused it to be consistent with your story. Therapist records, letters from friends, family, professors, and community members. And those letters are not going to say, so-and-so is a great person, he should be able to stay in your country. They have to describe what persecution you suffered and how they know it, because they saw it, because they treated you medically because you called and told them about it. Like, what did you suffer and how do they know about it? And then you can also have people who can give background information about you. So professional historians that can tell what's happening in your country. We can't always assume that our judges are going to be competent on the situation in each country. So sometimes we have to help and give them that information. You may also choose to have expert testimony from someone who's researched your country and is considered an expert. They have peer-reviewed published papers. And then you can also have live testimony from individuals who are familiar with your case. Evidence to establish future persecution. So the State Department reports and travel advisories used to be a really great place to go for this information. Unfortunately, they have been gutted by this administration. So State Department reports no longer have sections dedicated to harm that women face, to harm to the LGBTQ community, to specific harms that the government perpetuates, internally displaced persons. So the 2024 report might not be very useful to you, but you can still pull up the 2023 report and you can look up travel advisories as well. News articles from reputable agencies. Yes? So you don't want to use an article that's just, oh, you just randomly found on Facebook. You want to be able to pull it from a reputable journalist or newspaper and use that one. You can also have letters from friends, family, professors, people who are able to say, oh, the person who harmed you is still here in this country and they're still free. And so that same issue is going to happen if you come back here. Also, if that person or group has sent you any additional threats since you arrived in the United States, Messenger, WhatsApp, however they sent them, you can use those as well. And also keep in mind that what you consider a threat may not translate to a threat directly in English. And so you have to keep in mind that you might have to provide context for it. So for example, I represented somebody from Afghanistan who had received a threatening letter. And when he brought the letter to me, the letter, it said, I need you to meet us at this time in order to go over your research at the university. And so I said back to him, you're going to have to explain how this is a threat to the judge, because reading it plain after it's been translated into English just sounds like they want to have a meeting to talk about your work. And he's, goes on to explain that, under the Taliban, they are not allowed to encourage women to vote and participate in society. And because he was doing research on the harms that society faces when women are not active participants, that this was a threatening letter to him about the research that he was conducting and the papers that he was publishing. All right, and the last thing that we're going to talk about today is DACA. So DACA is Deferred Action Against Childhood Arrivals. The original plan for DACA was that people would register, get work permits, and that there would be a path created to residency and then citizenship. Unfortunately, all of those plans failed, and so DACA has just been left as a place where people can get a work permit and nothing more. So these are the requirements in order to apply for DACA. Unfortunately, DACA is currently, not suspended. You can turn in an application, but they're not making decisions on those applications. It's been paused, and it is currently in litigation. It's been back and forth in litigation in Texas for quite a while. So if by some chance it becomes unfrozen and there becomes a pathway to residency made by it, that would be great. I would love for that to happen. It's not right now. So Tosin already talked about different resources that are available from the Nigerian Center. The only one that I want to highlight is if you go onto the Nigerian Center website, you will find state reports and evidence specific to Nigeria, so that if you have a pending asylum application, you might want to pull some of those reports and add them if they apply to whatever your fear is to return to Nigeria. Again, please come and see us and have a consultation with us. Even if you feel great about your current status, there may be an option available that you are not considering, and you can pursue multiple options at the same time. So we'd love to see you and hear from you. So if you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand, unmute yourself, and share. I think there's a small enough number of us here that you could just unmute yourself and ask your question if you're comfortable with that. If you're not comfortable with that, you can just put it in the chat. We have a room full of experts. That's great. All right. Well, thank you all so much for attending. If you end up having questions, just come see us on Thursdays.
Yes, so if no one has any questions, we will be ending our workshop. I want to say thank you all so much for coming.
Excuse me, I have a question, but I can't find where I can raise up my hand.
Oh, you can just go on ahead right now and ask your question.
Okay, thank you so much for this very informative lecture you've shared with us. I have two applications, two green card applications. I did the EB1, I for one I-140, which is pending, and I had been on a religious visa before switching to student visa when my date, priority date was, there's been this backlog since 2022. So I have to switch from R1 to F1. I am still currently on the F1. So right now I have submitted a change of status because the priority date is correct on the R1. So my question is, can I now go off F1 since I have filed for change of status on the R1?
So I'm about to ask you a question that might be personal. You might need to have a personal conversation. Why did you do a change of status application instead of applying for residency if you have an EB1 I-140 approval?
No, the I-140 was not yet, it's not yet approved right now. It's still pending. I just did that last year. Um, I have served out my R1 visa and I have an approved I-360, but I couldn't file for change of status because the date was not correct. So I now later did the EB1, which is still pending all the same. But for me to remain in status, I had to be on the student visa.
Okay, and so the question is?
The question is, now that I have filed for change of status based on the approved I-360, which is sure, since the I-140 is pending, but the I-360 has been approved. My question is, can I now go off F1?
You're asking if you can quit school.
I'm asking if I can now stop the schooling, if I can now go off F1 visa, since I now have I-485 on the R1 pending.
So when you say that you applied for a change of status, are you referring to the form I-539? Because that's different from applying for residency, which is the I-485.
No, I'm talking about I-485.
Okay. So if you have an I-485 pending, then you do not have to maintain status, but I would. The reason why I would is because if for some reason your I-485 is denied, if you have to file again, you don't want to fall out of status. So if you can maintain your F1 status until you have your green card in hand, that's the better position to take.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome, Emmanuel. Thank you for the question.
Does anyone else have a question? Please feel free to just unmute yourself. Okay. So if no one else has any other questions, we will be closing out. Thank you guys so much for joining us, and thank you to our two speakers. Your time is greatly appreciated. Everyone, please have a great night and goodbye.
Goodbye. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. That was good moderating by you, Chris.